Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of PLP Talks. We are back from our summer vacation. I took a little break doing these episodes just so I could focus on more outside bike reviews. And I'm happy to say we are back with a killer episode. Today, I'm going to be interviewing Rebecca Rusch, known as the Queen of Pain, but also the Queen of Planning, apparently. We're going to talk about her event, Rebecca's Private Idaho, and how it's impacted her community of Sun Valley, Ketchum, and generally follow this interesting thread of gravel events as economic rural development. You might have seen that bicycling magazine article recently about how gravel cycling events are saving small towns. Well, I think Rebecca's Private Idaho is definitely a perfect example of that. Before we jump in, this episode is supported by listeners and viewers just like you guys. So if you love this content, be sure to check out those PayPal links below. In addition, this episode is also supported by FilmedbyBike.org. FilmedbyBike is a turnkey bicycle film festival that you can bring to your community, your bike shop, and use it to stoke the bike fun. They make it really easy to add programming to an event or just a fun excuse to gather cyclists together to do some fundraising and community building. So if you want that in your town, check out filmedbybike.org. So with all that said, you guys will dig this episode. It is such an interesting look at a different side of Rebecca Rusch. So put on those earbuds, pretend like you are working at your desk, and enjoy the show. So I guess let's start about what was your initial motivation to start the event?
That's a really good question. I'm a mountain bike athlete primarily, and so a lot of people have asked me why I started a gravel event. I started Private Idaho for a few reasons. One, because when I travel, everywhere I travel around the world, people ask me, Ida what? Ida potatoes? Like, why do you live in Idaho? And so I wanted to show people that this is the best place I've ever ridden my bike and kind of share what I know about this place with everyone else. And that was partially to kind of, it's like when you find something really cool, you want to share it with your friends. But I also wanted to support my community and bring people here. And, I live in a small town, and so I want to keep living here. So it was also my way of giving back to the businesses that are here. Mm-hmm. And third, I'd always thought I wanted to launch a mountain bike event. And I'll tell you why I launched gravel is I went to a couple different events and kind of got inspired. I went to, in the same year, Dirty Kansas and Levi's Grand Fondo, and that was 6 years ago. And I'm not really a roadie. I ride a road bike, and I'd never done a gravel event. And going to those two events, it kind of turned the light on for me that, Idaho has so many dirt roads, and I train on them all the time, and it never occurred to me like, well, yeah, maybe I'll start with a gravel event instead of a mountain bike event. And what I really love about that is that it's kind of this middle ground that brings in new mountain bikers, roadies. It's pretty much anyone can come ride. And so I really like the aspect of being able to just throw a gigantic party and not be limited by, really difficult permits or anything like that. And so I started riding my motorcycle around on all the dirt roads, going and looking for a course. But really the motivation to launch it was to bring my work home and to show people this really amazing state that I live in, and give back to my community. And it's turned into, the first year I didn't think anybody would come. Second year I didn't think anybody would come. And now we're going on year 6, and I'm sure we'll cap out at 1,000 people. And it's really rewarding for me as an athlete. I love crossing the finish line, doing all that, but it's actually almost been more rewarding to watch all these people cross the finish line of, 100-mile, really sort of back roads event, and kind of see the lights go on for people. Mm-hmm. So that's why I started it. We're going on year 6, and I called it Rebecca's Private Idaho, and I was thinking for names. And I was out riding and out on my motorcycle. I'm like, there's just nobody out here. There's no one. And there's no cell service. And I think that's really unique for people to be able to escape and check out, even if it's just for a day. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of what this state is about, mm-hmm. is being able to kind of, our little hashtag is gravel less traveled, and kind of how I've sort of chosen my rides and chosen the place I want to live. And yeah, being able to share that with the cycling community is super exciting. And gravel has started exploding since, I launched the event 6 years ago, and it's really on an upswing, which is
awesome.
So kind of fun to see people trying new surfaces to ride on.
Right. What's the growth been like for the event? Like, how many riders did you have like the first year, and what was the tipping point when people start to
first year was 170, which I was pretty shocked by, because we were our town was on fire. We had the Beaver Creek fires, wildfires right around. The whole town was evacuated, basically going up in smoke, and I'm a firefighter, so here I'm launching this first year event. I'm working 18-hour days, and we're just a few weeks out, and no one's in town except the firefighters, and the airport's closed. I'm just like, what do I do? Do I give the money back? I don't know what to do. But the smoke cleared, and this Private Idaho was the first event that happened along with the Wagon Days Parade on Labor Day weekend. It was the first event after the fires, and so it was kind of like this, great healing event, and 170 people, hearty souls, showed up despite the fact that the town had been ablaze a couple weeks before. And then this last year we had 870 riders. So we've had really great steady growth over the 5 years. But to me, I'm capping it this year at 1,000. I think we could probably have more people, but it's really important to me that the event stays intimate, and that people can come and talk to me, and that they feel like they're welcome in my hometown. It's a really important aspect of the whole thing for me, is that it doesn't become this 10,000 person event where you can't even see the start line when you start.
Right. So did you work or how closely have you worked with the local chamber?
A lot. So I live here. Obviously, I'm a resident, and so the city of Ketchum and the city of Sun Valley, they're responsible for our permit. We also have to work with the Chalice National Forest, the Ketchum Ranger District, Sawtooth National Forest. So there's a lot of collaboration between the town and myself, and then also Visit Sun Valley, which is our kind of tourism board or chamber, so to speak. I'm a member there, and they really help as well with getting media here and spreading the word and putting it on their websites. And that's been a big learning experience for me. I mean, I knew I could put on an event, and I could get, because of my experience as an athlete, I could bring some sponsors in and spread the word in the cycling community. But it's been really great to, and challenging to, attend city council meetings and go and, vote on certain things and really study some of the other events that have been successful here, like the Boulder Mountain Tour is a big Nordic ski race that's been going on, I think, 35 or 40 years in this valley, and that has 1,000 skiers, and, just kind of looking at the things here that survived and why they survived, and building a legacy for that with Private Idaho is super exciting. So I do work with a chamber. We also have a group, Sun Valley Economic Development, and they help us evaluate our statistics and really show the economic impact. And those things are really important when I'm asking for a permit. I'm basically showing that, I'm a small business, but bringing a lot of business here as well. And that makes me feel really good. That was one of my initial goals, is to support the locals. So, we hire locals. We get our T-shirts locally. Sawtooth Brewery is a sponsor. So we really try to use as much local talent and help as possible. Again, with the motivation so that I could keep living here and kind of build something really cool in this community.
Yeah.
And it's working.
What were those, it sounds like when you first started it, like the gravel event space was fairly new. What was that initial reception like from the chamber and local businesses? Were they kind of wary, or had they heard of gravel events before?
And even it took a few years for people who were like, oh yeah, Rebecca's doing her ride. A lot of the businesses were like, oh, they're going up and over Trail Creek. What? Which is very remote. We leave town and then you kind of head up into the mountains and head away from town, out of cell phone coverage. And I think the first couple years, the cyclists I knew, you know, the Elephant's Perch, Sturtevant, some of our bike shops are like, they got what I was doing. But they're also asked, well, why aren't you doing a mountain bike event? I'm like, I think this is going to be better. This is going to allow more people, and, you know, everyone can come from, you know, all shapes and sizes and ability levels, from pro to, you know, beginners. I basically didn't want to host an elitist event. And I think the businesses, you know, the cyclists kind of understood, but they also thought I should do a mountain bike event. I'm like, no, let's try this. And now we're going into year 6, like I said, and it's kind of feels like a fixture for, you know, everyone's like, oh yeah, now they know the name of the event. They know that it's not just Rebecca trying to do something crazy. You're like, oh wow, okay. And so now there's some really great partnerships with our local shops and local hotels and Visit Sun Valley, and people are really getting on board. But since I lived here, you know, even in the first couple years, people were supportive. They're like, okay, you want to do this? We'll give it a try. But now they really see the impact, and they see the businesses, and they see that people come, and because we're off the beaten path, people stay 4 or 5 days. It's pretty common. I mean, average nights in town is actually 3.5 from our surveyed riders. So they're not like blasting in, doing the event, and going home that night. People are staying, and that makes me feel really good. And that was part of the motivation for me to launch the stage race format, and to also launch Rusch Academy training camps that I'm hosting this year, because the biggest thing I heard in the first few years was, well, next time we're going to stay longer. And I was like, all right, if you want to stay longer, I can show you around a little bit more. And that's the genesis of the Queen stage races. For people who want more ride days, I'm happy to show them some other places.
Let's talk a little bit about the differences between your original event and the Queen stage race for those that aren't familiar. Like, what did you change in the format?
Well, the Rebecca's Private Idaho still exists as the, you know, the one day. We have a 50 miler, 100 miler, the big potato, small fry, and then hopefully adding for this year a 25 miler tater tot ride. So that's all on the Sunday of Labor Day weekend, and that remains. And so then last year, you know, I had this great idea of like, I want to show people more of Idaho and the stage race format. I come from mountain bike stage racing, and it's been a great way to see the world, you know, Trans Andes or going all these places, and you ride 5, 6, 7 days in a row. And so I was like, well, there aren't any gravel stage races. Maybe we should do that. And so the stage race format, it's still part of Rebecca's Private Idaho. So the final stage for the Queen stage race riders is, you know, the big potato route, the 100 miler of Private Idaho. But prior to that, they'll do Thursday, Friday, Saturdays off because it's the parade, and Sunday. So 3 days of riding over 4 days. And the first stage, which is really fun and exciting, is what I call the adventure stage. And so last year I did a trial run with 50 invited riders to just kind of test run it and see how it would work. And we're launching it officially for this year. And so the first stage is about 50 miles, and it's going to combine some pretty rugged small tracks, a little bit of single track thrown in. And the idea of that is, you know, since we do have roadies and mountain bikers coming and joining on the same playing field, I didn't want any group to have, you know, an advantage. I wanted to level the playing field. So the first stage is definitely favors the mountain bikers, the people with mountain bike handling skills, but you still have to ride your gravel bike. Same bike, all 3 stages. So yeah, first day is a little bit of an adventure day with some single track and really rough, kind of narrow footpath gravel, stuff like that. And then the second day is a really fun it's almost 50 miles, but it's a neutral rollout, about 20 miles out to this gravel hill. And what it was really great about the neutral rollout last year is it became a really nice social group ride. And we're all chatting and, you know, catching up. And then there's a 4.5 mile uphill time trial. And that definitely favored the roadie types. And then we ride back to town again as a group social ride. Sunday is the Wagon Days parade and our expo and vendor stuff. And then Sunday is the big potato, where the Queen Stage Race riders join in with the rest of the group. And so they're scored cumulatively over the 3 days, and they've got to finish every stage on the same bike. And it was really successful last year as a trail run. And so it's officially open now, but it is limited to 200 riders. Mm-hmm. So mostly because we're on smaller trails, and, I just kind of want to keep that one a little bit intimate and grow it slowly. And that's what I've done with Private Idaho as well, is I grew it slowly. I didn't just open it up. I did put a limit on it each year, like, okay, 170 people came the first year. Okay, 300 people came the second year. Okay, I'm going to cap it at 500 the next year. And because I wanted to just slowly add a couple hundred more people and see how it felt, to make sure that it didn't get out of control.
Right.
But yeah, it's been amazing, and I'm actually really looking forward to it for this year. And I'll ride all the stages, which is really fun for me to be on the course with everybody, even though I don't score myself. Mm-hmm. So nobody has to worry about racing me for the stage race or anything.
Right. So how does the timing work? Is it time climbs or time descents, or?
The time trial stage, stage 2 of the Queen Stage Race, is only timed uphill. And we actually, on the descent coming down the time trial, we actually implemented a penalty that if you went more than the speed limit on the road, which is 25 miles an hour, that you'd be disqualified.
Gotcha.
And that's mostly because it's open roads, and we wanted to make sure that people were safe on the descent. And everybody was really cool about, sharing the trail and sharing the roads. And I do emphasize that to the riders, that, look, my name is on your number plate and I have to live here. And, if you aren't a good guest in my hometown, I'm the one who's going to hear about it. And people are really great about that. I think when they come to Ketchum and Sun Valley, they see and feel the small town friendliness and aspect. And, everyone who's come has really respected that when it comes to even parking in the right places, or, not ripping down the roads and on the wrong side of the road. And so I really do try to emphasize that, hey, let's be good stewards, because to be honest with you, a lot of this town had never seen that many cyclists. And I want to make sure that we show people who aren't cyclists, that we're, the right group of people to be here, and that they'll be welcomed back. And so there is an education and a responsibility that my riders have, and I reinforce that, and everybody's been really great. But I think we've kind of shown the community who cyclists are. And, there was probably this stereotype of, like, especially mountain bikers are just dirtbags, they're just going to camp, 20-somethings. And that's really not, there are cyclists who fit in that mold, but really, there isn't a stereotypical cyclist anymore. It really does spread across all ages and, economic, categories. And so it's pretty cool to be able to, one, show the local businesses, the chamber, the city, that cyclists are, the right kind of people to be here. These are the guests that we want in our town. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any anecdotes or stories of maybe a business or someone that was kind of on the fence, but then after they saw the benefit or better supporters?
Yeah, I wouldn't say they were on the fence, but, we have a local bike shop here that their shop is right on the corner of where we start and finish. And so a really great location. And we start at 8 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. And it's the day after a big parade. And so the town's a little bit fatigued. The businesses are like, it's a really big weekend here. And, the shop owners are open, all hours. And the first 2 years, well, the first year, and then the second year they did it again, a shop called Elephant's Perch, they decided to open up early at 7 a.m. just in case riders had any last minute issues or deals. And that was really cool because, I was like, oh, wow. And they did that on their own. But then they came back to me afterwards and were like, oh my gosh, we had so many people coming in and buying gloves and saying thank you and, appreciating, us just like pumping up their tires. And that felt really great for me. And it's not that they were on the fence about the ride. I think they didn't realize, one, that how much it was going to boost their business and that people were going to actually buy clothing like 15 minutes before the race started. I think people were surprised in a mountain town in September that it can be in the 30s and 40s at 7:45 in the morning. And so that was pretty exciting. And then we have another bike shop that we work with that now has, they receive bikes through bike flights. Everyone can ship their bikes there, have them built. And so we've really kind of grown into kind of have a little system going. There's another sandwich shop called Johnny G's, another restaurant called Perry's that specifically have come up to me every single year and said, we got a ton of cyclists here. We were so stoked. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. And that's really nice. That makes me feel good that without me even asking, people are coming and saying thank you for bringing everybody here.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
I think the city of Sun Valley, the city of Ketchum, those were probably later adopters, because when I went to them and said, hey, this is what I want to do, it was like, okay. On Wagon Days weekend, on Labor Day weekend, are you sure? But I think now what they're seeing is really cool, is, Wagon Days is the largest non-motorized parade in the Northwest. And so it celebrates our heritage of mining and ore and the wagons coming over Trail Creek Summit, which is the way the riders go out on their bikes. And so it's kind of this cool, and I wanted to put it on that weekend to celebrate Idaho history and kind of the juxtaposition of the wheels of like, this is our heritage, but, recreation and cycling is our future. Mm-hmm. And so, and I also wanted to showcase kind of the cool Western mountain town stuff, to people who come from big cities or other places. And that's been really amazing. But the Wagon Days folks and also the cities were kind of like, are you sure you want to do it this weekend? And it's ended up being a really cool collaboration with the Wagon Days Parade and with Private Idaho, because it's two very different groups of people. Wagon Days are all, horse ranchers, that kind of group. Mm-hmm. And it's really fun to mix them up together mm-hmm. on the weekend. It's been great.
Do you get a sense of, I feel like one interesting kind of effect of a gravel event is that it puts a destination on the map, and people actually come, different times of the year to ride the route or get a sense of the place. Do you see that happening? Yeah,
what I see, Trail Creek Hill, which is the biggest climb, it's a big one climb that we do. I think it's 1,300 feet, right out of town. That's been like my little training ground for always. I do my hill intervals there all the time, and I'm usually the only one on this hill. And now as we start coming up in, as we get closer, I'll see people training on that hill now, or, I'm going to ride up to Trail Creek Summit, and, I'm going to set my goal. And even a lot of locals had never been up and over the hill, over Trail Creek into the Copper Basin on their bicycle. A lot of people don't drive that way. It's just, so I feel, one, I opened the eyes of some of the locals who are like, I've never ridden over Trail Creek. It's beautiful in Copper Basin. Mm-hmm. And now I see people training on that hill. And then, of course, we have people from 37 different states come out here. And now they know the names of these places. They know what Ketchum is, what Sun Valley is, because that's a confusion for some people. They're both towns right next to each other. And they know what Trail Creek Summit is. They know what the Copper Basin is. They know what Wild Horse Canyon is, the Sawtooth Mountains. And that's a big part of me is wanting to showcase this special place. And and then you go back home to New York City and you're dreaming of Idaho mm-hmm. and dreaming of the next time you could come back and ride. And I've had people buy condos here and buy homes here. And, I've introduced my realtor to quite a few folks who came and traveled here for my event and fell in love with the place like I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it'd be an interesting exercise to see the Strava stats on that hill before and after the event.
That's a good idea. Because, nobody was riding that hill except me and like Richard Feldman's another pro rider in town and a few people like that. And my friends who I'm like, come do hill intervals with me. But otherwise, it definitely wasn't a regular thing like it is now.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges that we see, like kind of tracking kind of the year-round usage of a place. But things like
Uh-huh.
Strava or Ride with GPS, especially if like clearly before the event no one was riding it, you can kind of see the growth and see where people are coming from, get other data.
That's a good idea.
So let's talk a little
That's
bit
fun.
about.
And that's part of this stage race thing too, is I want to showcase other parts of the valley because
Mhm.
we have, I mean, just in this valley alone, 400 miles of single track and I don't know how many dirt roads. And so the part of the motivation for me to launch the Queen Stage Race is to just show people a little bit more.
Mhm.
And so, unlike the Leadville has a stage race that is on the same course, Queen Stage Race, every stage is different. We don't go on the Rebecca's Private Idaho course until the last day. And that's been really cool too, because we have like Galena Lodge, for example, is a really cool lodge 20 miles north of town. And they've just implemented over the last 5 years a whole bunch of new mountain bike trails. And so, hopefully going to be able to showcase that. And then people come back and they're like, yeah, I'm going to go to Galena Lodge again. But just show a little bit more of our valley and what we have to offer.
Mhm. Do you think because the event is a gravel race, not a mountain bike race, it's more scalable just by virtue of
I do.
having? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, having 1,000 people in a mountain bike race on single track just isn't going to happen. But I can have 1,000 people on a gravel road, and then they can come back another time and ride their mountain bike. And the future of Rebecca Rusch and bike events in Idaho, I am launching the Rush Academy, so I'll have 2 mountain bike endurance training camps that are 4 or 5 days, and those are 20, 25 people. So I'll be able to showcase a little more of the mountain biking and also do a gravel camp. But I think there is a mountain bike event here in my future that I'll be launching as well. I just don't know how it looks, but it won't ever hit the numbers of a gravel event just because of the nature of the trails and single track riding. And that's okay. 1,000 people can fit on a gravel road, but 1,000 people don't have to fit on single track. Because I also want to be, since I live here, cognizant of our impact as well.
That's one thing that I think is kind of unique about gravel, is that many places aren't fortunate enough to have, kind of single track in their backyard, but a lot of rural places have gravel roads. So as kind of, a place to start in terms of, creating a, bicycle tourism focused event, like gravel opens up so many doors.
It's huge. I mean, there's gravel roads everywhere outside of every town. And I think that's what's really cool is when people, it kind of opens their eyes, roadies and mountain bikers are like, oh, I have roads near my house that I've never taken. And I kind of felt that way too. I mean, I've ridden all our mountain bike trails, but when I started scouting for Private Idaho out on my motorcycle, I'm like, wow, I've never been on this road. This is really cool. And I started seeing that there were places in my own backyard that I had never even seen. And it really does open up a lot of opportunities for people, no matter where you live. And like gravel's really big in the Midwest because there's tons of gravel roads out there. They're starting to launch gravel events out in Pennsylvania, and where they have a lot of the, I think they're called they're wagon trails and rails to trails like kind of set up out there. So it really does open a whole new playing field for somebody who wants to ride a bicycle and maybe either doesn't have mountain bike trails near their house or they're intimidated by single track.
So let's talk a little bit about the economic impact. Have you been able to capture numbers?
Yeah, we have. And actually just, we have like I said, Sun Valley Economic Development that's here in town and helps us with it. Helps us with basically gathering statistics of a lot of different events in town. And they kind of took our numbers this year and looked at economic impact. And basically, we're bringing in excess of $3 million into Blaine County just for 2017. And that'll continue to grow with 2018, especially with the stage race, the camps being launched. So I feel really good about that. Mm-hmm. I mean, we hire, between hotel and condo, food and drinks, retail, shirts, all that kind of stuff. And the way that the Sun Valley Economic Development Group basically kind of looking at all of the events in the valley. We're now Private Idaho is right up there as along with the Boulder Mountain Tour, which has been going for, I think, like I said, almost 40 years. Private Idaho is now right up on par with that event as far as economic impact. So I feel really good about that in just 6 years, being able to kind of match our premier winter event with the cycling event.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a sense of the number of room nights the event generates?
I'm looking at our statistics here. I mean, what we do have is this average, 496 estimated condo and house rentals, 3.5 average nights in town, some of our stats, $131,000 in hotel condo alone, just kind of with those numbers.
And that seems like that should kind of grow exponentially with the stage race.
It totally will. It'll be great. And I think it'll encourage people, like I said, to come and stay. The stage race, they're gonna have to stay here, 5 days, if they're taking part in that. So I'm really excited to see our numbers for 2018 and compare those with, a couple hundred more riders in Private Idaho and then a couple hundred riders in the Queen stage race. I think it's going to be great. Mm-hmm. And this is really the first year that we've started, we've done surveys and questionnaires every year, but this is the first year that a professional group has taken our numbers, gotten some statistics for us, because like I said, I'm a bike racer learning how to put on a bike event and realizing that, for our sponsors and for the city, and that we have to have these kind of statistics. One, to show that all the work that we're doing is having an impact, but also to make sure that people realize their investment is going to the right places.
Mm-hmm. I spoke recently with a small destination in Mississippi, and they had a century ride, and the chamber took it on. And before the chamber took it on, it was generating something like 20 room nights. And then the chamber was like, well, we have to force an overnight stay. So they created a big after party that was late in the evening. And it went from something like 20 room nights to 200.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't really think about that when I launched this event. I'm just like, I want people to come to Idaho. I want to show them around. But I've naturally seen it happen that people, stay here. They bring a mountain bike as well. A lot of people, about 35% of them, rode on the mountain bike trails as well. And the number one thing I hear in our feedback is, I'm going to stay longer next time, which I really like hearing. And so, like you said, I might as well offer things along the way. If they're going to stay here longer, I can offer more dinners, more activities, more gatherings, more rides.
Do you think by having the event and people seeing the benefit of cycling, that it's helped the reputation of cyclists or acted as bike advocacy in the region at all?
I do. That's a really good comment, because so let's see. 7 years ago, we had mountain bike nationals here for a couple times on Sun Valley Resort, and my husband and I helped with that. And I think that was the first time that, in sort of recent history that cycling was put on the map for Sun Valley and Ketchum. And I heard a lot of the local community, thinking that the cyclists who were coming were, some people, if they don't ride, you hear mountain bike and you put in your head, you see in your head, Red Bull Rampage or downhill, the things that you see on TV or YouTube. And so I think the community initially with nationals was surprised to see that, cyclists are staying in hotels, they're, buying food and drinks, they don't all want to camp. And Private Idaho has really kind of extended that kind of incorrect perception that cyclists just are dirtbags, or they just want to jump off cliffs with their bike. And especially gravel cyclists are definitely are not that way. And I think we're changing this perception that they're family members, they're professionals, they bring their kids, they come with their friends, they spend a lot of money on their bicycles. A lot of them are riding $10,000 bicycles, and that there isn't one kind of stereotypical cyclist. It's all abilities. Anyone can ride a bike from age 8 to 80. You can do it your whole life. at whatever level. And I think that perception has been changed by so many cyclists coming to town, being, loving this community and falling in love with it the way that I did. I think it's great for everyone to see, because Sun Valley is kind of on the map as a ski destination, but our summer economic impact has overtaken winter by far for the last number of years. And I think people are realizing what an amazing playground this place is, not just for cycling, but for fishing and hiking and everything else, paddling. And I feel really proud that I've been able to have, use my reach as a professional athlete and my reputation to bring people here. People wouldn't have come if they didn't know who I was initially. But now people are coming to Ketchum and Sun Valley because they hear the riding is great, and it's a super cool town. And we have changed the perception that cyclists are everybody, and that they're conservationists. They care about the trails. They want to eat nice food and go out to dinner, and they really do appreciate this place for what it is. I don't want to bag on any sort of tourist group, but I want to compare it a little bit to, we had the eclipse come through here this summer, and they were like really planning that the eclipse was going to, have the most people we've ever had in town. It was going to be crazy. And there were more people than there have ever been in town because we were right in the path of the eclipse. Mm-hmm. But what was cool about it, my husband's on the fire department, is people just went and walked up a hill and looked at the eclipse. And there wasn't mayhem in the streets or people doing anything, crazy. They were just looking up at the sky. And I think it's a little bit similar when people come here to ride their bikes. They're coming here to appreciate the outdoors. And so they do have a respect for our, small town community, but also the gem of all this public land and public space that we have to recreate.
Thanks again for listening or watching another episode of PLP Talks. If you like this content, consider supporting it with the links below. And thanks once again to FilmedbyBike for sponsoring this episode. And don't forget, if you are listening to this via podcast form, to go to your podcasting app of choice, rate it, review it, share it with your friends, and share the bike love. And until next time, keep the self side down.